boys and girls, and welcome to the concession stand here on the KB Radio Network. I am your host, Kevin Reed, and this is the review of Longlegs, a horror thriller written and directed by Osgood Perkins. It stars Maika, Monroe, and Nicolas Cage, and this film follows an FBI agent tasked with tracking down an occult serial killer whom she realized she has a personal connection to. This film was highly anticipated because it looked creepy as all get out. That trailer got to me. I don't know what it was, but it got to me. It looked like it was going to be one of those you got to watch in the daytime type horror films, and I was all for it. I'm a horror nut, so I was all in, and not to mention, I am a gigantic Nicolas Cage fan. And when you have Nicolas Cage as a serial killer, sign me up. Sign me up, take my money. And this film, as I stated, was directed by Osgood Perkins. If you don't know who he is the son of Anthony Perkins. If you don't know who he is, it is none other than Norman Bates himself. Yes, Anthony Perkins' son. And Maika Monroe, if you're a horror fan and you loved the film It Follows, she was the star of that film. And she did an excellent job in that movie. And I've seen her in other films after that. You know, she was in that horrible Independence Day sequel, Independence Day Resurgence. I don't blame her for that. That movie was just horrible altogether. But she kind of returns to the horror genre here. You know, Blair Underwood is in this film as well. Alicia Witt is in this film. It has all the pieces. You know, it has accomplished actors. It has a decent director. I haven't seen anything else that he's made, but his direction in this film was pretty good. And it's kind of an original idea. Now, there's a lot of similarities, and I mean a lot of similarities to Silence of the Lambs. Will I compare it to Silence of the Lambs? No. And I'm a type of person who don't hold Silence of the Lambs in such higher esteem as others. I know that it's a classic. I understand that that movie has won more awards than any other film ever. I mean, best picture, best actor, best actress, best screenplay, best everything. It won, I think, 12 Oscars or something like that. I know it's a great film, but I don't hold it in that high of esteem in the horror genre. I never understood why it was a horror, well, classified as a horror. There's some horrible things that happen in the movie, but not a horror. I saw it more as a suspense thriller. This film is billed as a horror thriller, and it's the same thing. I pretty much feel it has that same tone. It's more of a suspense thriller to me. There are horror elements in it, but there's more suspense thriller than anything else. I mentioned Osgood Perkins. He wrote and directed this film. As I said before, I haven't seen anything else he did. Looked on his IMDb, he hadn't done much, but this is kind of his big announcement to the world, and I think he did a fine job. I think this was a fairly decent directed film. There are some problems. There's some tone issues throughout the film. It keeps the tone, but in moments it kind of falls apart with the tone. You know, not for long, not enough to throw you out of the film, but it does kind of deviate from the tone set for this film. But overall, I think he did a decent job. His screenplay was really good, pretty simple, pretty cut and dry. You know, nothing that's going to win a Pulitzer, but it is a fairly good written screenplay here. Our acting performances here, is it Michaela or Maika Monroe? I don't know. I'm bad with names, but anywho, she did an awesome job. I think she did good. I've seen a lot of reviews where people complained about her performance. That the way she spoke and how she emoted throughout the film, they weren't big fans of. I actually liked it because it fit that character. Her speech patterns, and it wasn't like Rain Man type speech pattern. She wasn't artistic or nothing like that, but she had a unique dialect throughout the film, and I liked it. I liked her character as a whole. I think her character was well written, and she performed it very well. I'm a big fan of hers. I've been a fan of hers since It Follows. I was always wondering why we haven't seen more of her, because she did an awesome job in that film, and she did a pretty good job here. It's not the greatest performance on earth. I don't suspect that she will be considered in award season, but I did enjoy her performance. I thought it was really, really good. Blair Underwood, who is another one I haven't seen in a while. It's been a minute since I've seen Blair Underwood in anything, film or television. And it was a breath of fresh air to see him in this film. He was your basic FBI supervisor, I guess, of our lead characters, FBI agent. So he was just basic, but he came, nailed his lines, and went home. That was basically it. It wasn't bad. It wasn't great either, but he just did a solid job. Alicia Witt almost stole the movie with her performance. I think really good performance as the mother, and this ultra religious mother. And for a majority of the film, it was mostly voiceover by her character, until we get to the second act midway through the film, and she enters the film. But I even liked her voiceover, and then when she actually appeared on screen for the remainder of the film, really liked her even more. She almost stole the movie. Why she didn't steal the movie was because of Nicolas Cage. Nicolas Cage was so creepy in this film. This was a unique performance by Nicolas Cage. Very creepy, very unhinged, and that's saying a lot, talking about Nicolas Cage. Nicolas Cage is always unsettling and unhinged, but it was it had a creep factor to it this time too. Now I'm pretty sure there's a lot of people probably couldn't pinpoint some of his performances and find in the past and find creep in it, but I haven't seen it. But this was just super creepy, super disturbing. I don't want it. He was the character you don't want to meet down a dark alley. He was that type of creepy, and what made it so disturbing, you really don't see him do nothing. He never put his hands on anybody. You know what I'm saying? You don't see it. You don't witness it. And that made it even worse. He was just a very disturbing character. Now, this film has problems. I mentioned the tone. And I think that the director he just had a hard time trying to nail down the tone. It was trying to be Silence of the Lambs with a twist, and the twist didn't quite get there. But I don't know. It just screamed knockoff. It was like a B movie. It was like a direct-to-video knockoff of Silence of the Lambs, and that's not a bad thing. Because, like I said, I enjoyed the movie. It's not getting a failing grade. I enjoyed the movie. It's just it had its issues. One thing, and of course we're not spoiling the film, but they introduced a subplot very early on in this film. I would say the first 10-15 minutes of the film, and we don't revisit it. And it's like a big deal from our lead character with her keen sense of FBI work. I'll just put it like that without spoiling it. But we're introduced to that. We see her in action with that, and we don't see it no more. We don't see it no more. I mean, throughout the film is sprinkled that she's able to decode these messages and stuff like that, but that really doesn't pertain to what she showed in the opening scene, her opening scene of the film. And I like, like, I thought that was going to be a main component of the story, but it wasn't. It wasn't, and I was kind of let down by that. The ending here, the ending, it dropped the ball. This movie was winning the race. It was coming around the track at 1,000,000 miles per hour. It was getting to the finish line. We were almost there, and it tripped right before it got to the finish line. The ending did not work for me, and I don't know why. It's not the whole third act. The third act was what it was. It kept in tone with the rest of the film. You know, it was lock and step with everything. Even the end was lock and step. I just didn't like it. I did not like how this film ended. It ended so abruptly, and you still had questions that needed to be answered, and we're not going to get. And it's like, okay, so I'm just supposed to live with this, you know? I'm supposed to live with this. But the good thing about this is this film is so original and so interesting that there's a lot of mental unpacking you can do with it, you know, following your viewing of the film. Like, there's a few points that I mentioned while talking that's not in my notes because I was thinking about it. and I said it during this review, you know, because it's so much to unpack. There's a lot to unpack. You know I made it seem like it was a simple little paint by numbers film, but it's not. There's a lot here to unpack. And as time goes on, I feel it may gravitate higher than what the grade I'm going to give it today. But you have to unpack it, and it's going to take time. And it's just one of those films. But at the end of the day, overall, this was a really good film. Really good. The creepy. It wasn't scary. It's not that type of horror film. It's not jump scares and gore and blood and guts. Well, there's one gory scene, just one where we actually see it in action. Now, we do see the aftermath of some events that take place, but we don't actually see the events. The movie does a good job of allowing your imagination to do the work for you, and that's where the creep factor comes in. And this was a very creepy film. This is probably one of the most creepy films I've seen in a long time. And if you're playing the drinking game and taking a sip every time I say creepy during this review, you should be good and drunk by now. Because honestly, this is a very creepy film. Not scary, just creepy. And for that reason, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it for its attempt at originality. You know, it's even though it takes elements from Silence of the Lambs and films of that ilk, it still manages to be an original film. And I know that sounds crazy, but once you see it, or if you have seen it, you I think you kind of feel where I'm coming from. It's just one of those films, and it is definitely rewatchable. I will watch this again in a heartbeat. And for that reason, I'm giving Longlegs a letter grade of a B-. I think it's one of the best thrillers, suspense thrillers / horror films of the year. It's very, very good, except for the end, but there's enough good throughout the film to kind of look past it. I would love to know, what did you think of Longlegs? Did you find it creepy, or did you think it was boring and uninspiring or whatever? I would love to know your thoughts, and I would love to know your thoughts on Nicolas Cage's performance in this film. I would, I want to know, what you thought of Nicolas Cage going full Nicolas Cage. If I had another problem about this film, we didn't get enough of Nicolas Cage. He was in it a good bit, you know, but he wasn't in it nearly enough as I wanted. I guess it was too much. It would have been too much. But What are your thoughts? Email the show, kbradiopodcast@gmail.com. You can also search for the show on all social media platforms. Just search for the KB Radio Network. Also, subscribe to the KB Radio Network channel on YouTube and like this video if you don't mind. Also, ladies and gentlemen, don't forget about the 5 stars, the reviews, and sharing this show. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, wherever you are currently listening to the concession stand here on the KB Radio Network. Everybody, thank you for joining me for this review of Longlegs. Can't wait to speak to you on the next go round. Want you all to know that I love you, continue to love everyone, and until we speak again, you all be blessed.